Yes, and having worked in tech before, I've also realized that and I've seen it firsthand. As a woman in tech, when I
Uh-huh.
started, there were not a lot of females in tech,
Yeah.
and I believe it really helps because you come from a different background, and you have different ideas in mind,
Yeah.
and I think it also when I was in tech, the roles that I did or the questions that I asked to end users were completely different sometimes from maybe male perspectives. And I
Mhm.
think you need, and that's what I think Gaurav is saying as well. The advantage of having both is that the end product is going to be enhanced.
Yeah.
And I've experienced that firsthand and very much enjoyed doing so as well, but also really learned. And for example, I've lived 7 years abroad. And one of the things I've really learned there is that if you have diversity in your teams, you get different perspectives. And the end result and the end product is always better than if you didn't have these diverse talents or diverse skills in your team.
Welcome to Women Disrupting Tech. My name is Dirk-Jan Upkes, and on this podcast I give the women who work in tech the platform they need to inspire and empower each other. Join me on a journey into the world of entrepreneurship, funding, biases and role models to discover the strategies for success in the tech industry. In other words, how women can disrupt tech. Are you ready to listen? Hey, welcome back to Women Disrupting Tech, and thank you for listening to episode 85. If you are a regular listener, you probably know that if we want technology to work for everyone, we need more diverse teams in tech companies. And recruiting women is an essential part of that. But how can we support women who want to switch to tech after a career break, like maternity or relocating to another country? How can we help them build the necessary skills and confidence? And how can we match them with market demand? This is where the Blockverse Institute comes in. Founded by Gaurav Gupta and with Iris Bloemsma as a strategic advisor, they offer training programs that help women enter the world of tech after a career break. They work with partners like Deloitte and Google, and they have partnered with the Dutch government to increase the share of underrepresented groups in tech in India and South Africa. In this episode of Women Disrupting Tech, we explore the world of upskilling. We discover how Blockverse helps women find a job in tech after maternity or relocation, why building their skills and their confidence is key to making employers understand that they've been missing out, and how data plays a pivotal role in creating the tech education of the future. Plus, you'll learn how being a part of the DNNL 2024 Launchpad was key to becoming certified with the European Supplier Diversity Program. So, when you're ready to listen and learn how the Blockverse Institute is becoming the platform to upskill and match women to tech, please welcome to Women Disrupting Tech Gaurav Gupta and Iris Bloemsma. So, good morning, Gaurav, or good afternoon to you, and good morning, Iris. Welcome to Women Disrupting Tech. Good to have you. The question I always ask at the start is how you got into your current job or current position. And Gaurav, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us. My story begins with about 2 decades plus experience. I
Mhm.
have a background in human resources and engineering, and most recent assignments was heading HR for two companies locally. Locally, I mean I am from Indian origin, so these companies were in India. And
Mhm.
then I was the global HR director for a multinational based out of the Netherlands. Really liked it here, especially in the summers. And but 2 years ago, I founded a company along with Iris. The company is called Blockverse.
Mhm.
And to come back to what brought me to there, the idea was very simple. You have a podcast by that name. The idea is very simple to get more women doing tech, so more diverse talent in tech. One of our big insights was that this is a supply issue, and we can solve the supply issue by doing the hard work ourselves and not waiting for somebody else to do it. But that's how I got my position. I'm very proud to run this company, and I'm really happy to be here. Thank you.
Okay. And Iris, how did you get involved?
Yeah, I guess it takes me back a little bit as when I started working, one of my first roles was an IT project manager. And although later I left the IT field, I have always been attracted to the role that tech can play to enhance a customer journey or make a process or a product more efficient.
Hmm.
And throughout my career, there has always been a link to tech. And I've been responsible, for example, for HR IT strategy when working for a large Dutch bank. And the topic of diversity is close to my heart, as I believe and have learned through 7 years of living abroad. There's a huge richness when you talk about diversity and when you are in a diverse team. So when one of my friends, Himanshu Shah, asked me to join his friend Gaurav and him on the Blockverse adventure, I hopped in.
Yeah.
And here we are today.
Okay. Cool. So maybe good because Gaurav, you mentioned that you're actually seeing this as a supply chain issue.
Yes,
Maybe explain why you think it's a supply chain issue and not adoption
sure,
issue.
sure. So if you look at this thing, and you're right to look at it as a supply chain, if you look at this, and if I go back to my experience in HR, we've
Hmm.
always, as a company, whichever company we worked in, wanted to hire diverse talent. We wanted to do the right thing, not just socially, but economically as well.
Hmm.
Research has proven it helps in innovation, it helps in more effective teams. The challenge came when we as recruiters and when we as HR managers wanted to do this thing, but the external world or the external environment was not supportive. By that I mean there was very few people who had the skills that we were looking for. And the external supply pool, the actual pool of people we could dip in from, recruit, that wasn't missing. And so that made
Ah,
us go back to the original sample size of the same people, the same fishing pool. The core thing is when the supply pool is missing, you do the easy thing in companies. And how can we do the hard things and prepare those pools? And that's why I call it a supply issue.
okay, I see. What you saw is basically that you couldn't find the talents that you were looking for, even though you wanted to.
Yes, we wanted to hire diverse, skilled talent,
Uh-huh.
and that was less in the market basically.
Okay. So, why is it important to because you already alluded to it a bit? Why is it important to have diverse teams?
Yes. So research has proven multiple times that diverse teams are more successful, more innovative, more profitable. But in my personal experience, if you look at, especially in technology, when all the great products are built, it is
Hmm.
important to have some people or the team to have diverse perspectives during product design. If you
Hmm.
look at the big companies today, Uber, Facebook, etc., or all the other big players, the assumption here was they had similar sorts of people designing, keeping the audience in mind of a similar type. When you have
Hmm.
a diverse person, the design of the product, the design of the technology, the empathy, the perspective that comes with the different people is always different. So,
Yeah.
would you have designed a product differently if you had a woman thinking about safety? If you would you have designed the product if women were thinking about addictiveness of social media? So, those are the kind of things that different kinds of people diversity brings, the perspective it brings to user design.
Yeah.
Iris,
And
did you?
so what is how do you see the need to involve diverse talents? Because did you have the same desire at the organizations you worked for previously?
Yes, and having worked in tech before, I've also realized that and I've seen it firsthand. As a woman in tech, when I started, there were not a lot of females in tech, and I believe it really helps because you come from a different background, huh? You have different ideas in mind, and I think it also when I was in tech, the roles that I did or the questions that I asked to end users were completely different sometimes from maybe male perspectives. And I think you need, and that's what I think Gaurav is saying as well. The advantage of having both is that the end product is going to be enhanced. And I've experienced that firsthand and very much enjoyed doing so as well, but also really learned. And for example, I've lived 7 years abroad, and one of the things I've really learned there is that if you have diversity in your teams, you get different perspectives, and the end result and the end product is always better than if you didn't have these diverse talents or diverse skills in your team. And I think one of the things I think we've seen as well, which alludes a little bit to the previous question you asked to Gaurav, is also and what you now see in the markets is that if we don't change anything, so if nobody does anything, the percentage of women in tech is actually on the decline because women are leaving and there's not enough supply entering. And I find that that's just not okay. If nothing happens, if nobody does anything, then the percentage of women in the workforce is actually on the decline. That's, to me, is something that we really have to prevent.
Yeah,
Indeed.
well, I fully agree there. I want to switch gears a bit to keep it chronologically sort of in sync because you initially started, I think, doing projects in South Africa and India. Is that right, Gaurav?
That is absolutely correct. We were
Okay,
supported by the government, indeed. Yes.
yeah. So I have two questions. One is, can you describe those projects a bit? And two is, why did you pivot away? Because you're doing something different now, which we'll get to in a
Hmm.
minute. But
So I see it as part of the same work that we're doing, the same work being getting women to join technology companies and take technology jobs. I see it as same, but I do want to really describe the projects, the one in South Africa and the one in India. So the one in South Africa was sponsored by the government of the Netherlands for its embassy work in Pretoria in South Africa.
huh?
And what they asked us to do is, and we know that South Africa has a huge unemployment problem. The youth unemployment is north of 60%. So, what they asked us to do is how we could get diverse talent, basically women, young black women from townships, and
Uh-huh.
how we could get them jobs. So, the work we did in South Africa was we studied the jobs landscape. We came to the conclusion, for example, that cybersecurity is high in demand. And then we trained these young women in those high demand skills. And not only did we train them, we went deeper to try to understand what was preventing them from joining technology. And the learnings and the richness of that project, the social dimension of what they were bringing, and the whole employment dimension was huge. I was very proud to say that 50% of the people we trained got jobs, and it was because of not just the skill that they brought in, but the confidence that they were able to bring in. So that was a South Africa project sponsored by the government of the Netherlands, RVO to be precise.
Yeah.
In
So
India, if I can, sorry, yeah, please.
out of curiosity, I don't know if you know, but why did the Dutch government bother about this?
Yeah,
Did you see the South African government being involved in this?
right.
Or were they like, oh, that's very nice of you to do?
Okay, that is a nice testy question. So the earlier model, and this is my understanding of the earlier model, the earlier model was an aid and trade model, which is the government has embassies all across Africa, so it was
Huh?
more aid and trade. The new model, which I think is very forward thinking, is that how we can increase the human capital of the countries that they have, let's say, signposts in. The reason the government involved us is because of the EU Africa trade and how they want to invest in human capital, how Netherlands wants to bring its technology and invest in human capital, and
Hmm.
also help the local population. The big theme of the Project Durkheim was how you can help the local population through something that the Netherlands has, which is in this case technology training in that matter.
Yeah.
And that's what the government took us for. Of course, it was also to help entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs like me, to advance and see international markets. And the RBO has a very strong program for that. We interacted with the embassy and we did work with the Dutch embassy, not so much the government of South Africa.
Okay. So it was a project basically run out of more Dutch slash EU interest than it was out of local interest.
The desire was to help the
Yeah.
local population, but yes, indeed, the thinking was in the sense Netherlands, yes.
Okay. So then you also did a project in India.
True. We had this crazy belief, which we are coming to even further strong, that economically challenged populations don't have to learn a low skill to be successful and to have a job. We went to a coastal village slash town slash city in the coast of India, and these economically challenged girls, women, we were able to impart a skill, in this case, blockchain, so
Hmm.
that they could get jobs, which was in that time high in demand.
Yeah.
And the one thing we could easily have done is train them on a basic digital skill or just basic skill, not even digital. But we said we'll do it in the long haul. We spent 9 months skilling these people, again, behaviorally and technically. And then we wanted to see how these really attractive jobs would be possible. Question one is, can you do high end skilling to people who have never seen it before?
Yeah.
Question two is, will they be employable? In
Uh-huh.
both cases, the answer was yes. In fact, while we discuss numbers, etc., Durkan, the most proud moment for me was when the father of a girl came up to me and said, "Is you've given my daughter a chance of generational wealth," and that is what really our company is about. So I think that was a huge moment of pride for Blockverse.
That I can absolutely imagine. If you get that compliment from a father that you've given his daughter generational wealth, that's a big thing.
Yes,
Out of curiosity, because you mentioned in South Africa that, and I guess that applies to India too, and maybe also in other countries, why don't, especially women from, let's say, lower social classes, why don't they see themselves in tech?
right. And Durkan, that is a question I would love to dig into. There are so many layers to that question. I think layer one is when you're struggling to survive, when you have the base things that you need to take care of, then you do what is things that give you immediate money. So, for example, the learners that we had in South Africa, they were juggling multiple balls and they were really stretched.
Yeah.
So when we did a focus group of these 12 to 20 people, we asked them the same question. Why don't you do tech? We got a range of answers, but some fantastic answers that I want to share on the show is the first lady said that I like to work in environments where I don't feel, let's say, working for a different gender or threatened by a different gender. I'd like to
Hmm.
work in an environment where there are more female managers, so people who relate to the work that I do, who relate to me as a person. And I
Hmm.
think that makes so much sense. If there
Yeah.
is very few middle managers or all the middle managers are male, then there's something that's missing in that. The other learner told us that while tech is good, what really brings home the money is retail because I get a job without training with just immediately. Tech takes a little longer while the gestation period is longer. And when you're at that level, you want to something which fills you up immediately. So that's, I think, the
So
story.
it's a bit about, let's say, do I take the immediate pain relief
Correct.
versus
Correct.
do I invest in a future that will probably yield me more later,
Right.
but it's later.
That is absolutely correct.
So, how did you take these learnings and apply
Mm,
them to what you're doing right now? Because
mm.
if I understand correctly, what and maybe this is a good question for Iris as well. You currently focus on women who are returning to the job market after a career break, and that can be relocation, it can be pregnancy, I think.
Yeah,
Yes,
correct.
that is correct.
There's two types of women in that sense that we focus on. And what
Yeah.
we've seen, for example, if we look at the Dutch market, and one of the learnings I think was for me as well, is that there are so many women in the Netherlands who have followed their partner, for example, who come from extremely good backgrounds and who might have had technical backgrounds already through their university studies,
Hmm.
but who then come to the Netherlands and do not find the ways to get back to work. So there's a desire to get back to work, and that there's a desire to add to the workforce, and yet
Huh?
they don't find their way back in the Netherlands to roles that suit them.
Hmm.
And in principle, and there's always a bit of a lagging time as well, because once you move with your family, and of course you have to take some time, especially if you move from such a different culture, to get adjusted. So many of these women take some time to get adjusted, get your family adjusted, and make sure everything is working well.
Uh-huh.
And then by the time when they would like to get back to work, they don't find the ways. And some of their knowledge might be a little bit outdated. So that's when we see where we really add value, because these women are hugely motivated.
Yeah.
Like I said, some of them have technical background, some of them don't. But I think the motivation to get back into work is huge, to add to the workforce. And many of them are doing voluntary work or doing other stuff, but they would really like to add to the economic process. And those are then women who find us and say, hey, you know what? If I do a Blockverse, if I join Blockverse, then I'll be trained both technically as well as behaviorally, and that really helps me to prepare to get back into the workforce. And that's why we always say as well that we train holistically. And what we mean with that is we train skills both technically as well as workplace specific behaviors, because we really feel that those are important. It's not just about the technical skills, but it's also about making sure once you re-enter into the workforce that you're confident on your behavior skills as well. And that just
Okay.
talks about communication or about project management or just plain workplace specific behaviors that really help you as well to get back into the workforce. That you know how to do your interview well, that you feel confident. And we talk about that a lot as well, because once you've been out of the workforce for a while, coming back is a huge step. And especially if you have gone through the process a couple of times where things didn't work out, that does something to your confidence. So that's
Oh,
something that
yeah.
we also talk a lot about,
Hmm.
and help women with, in a sense of, hey, support women with, that's a better word, as to, hey, you know what, this might have, in the past, this might have been the case, but now you have the technical skills. We talk you through, and we also provide you with behavior skills, and then we feel that that's an all-round picture in order to move back to the workforce.
Okay. So is it about then teaching people to trust themselves rather than to rely on external validation?
I don't think that's our core, but I do think it's one of the things that we have realized. It's very important that we take into consideration. If you've been out of the workforce and you want to get back, and you've been out there for a longer period of time, we think first of all you need to be upgraded on the technical skills, so that
Yeah.
gives you confidence, because then you know I'm up to date. I know what I'm talking about. But the second thing is also indeed is building that bridge towards, hey, you know what, I've had a couple of disappointments. How do I now take the faith that with my technical skills and the behavior skills that I'm ready to join that workforce? And I might still face the disappointments, and we all do when we're looking for roles and work.
Hmm.
But we do talk about that. Yes.
Okay.
And it helps then, I think, in a group of women as well. If you have then we do offline and online skilling, but this is typically an offline thing. And it helps if you have a group where there's trust and there's confidence and everybody has worked together over the last couple of months. So you know each other. And then within that group, you can really have that conversation as well as to, hey, you know what are you struggling with? Or how would you do this different?
Yeah, is that also something that you keep, how do you say, that you keep tabs on afterwards, that you keep following
Yes.
people on this?
Yes, yes. So exactly like what Iris said, Turkian, not only do we keep tabs, we build a community of the learners who have passed through our gates. And that community helps because some of the learners have jobs, some of them will still be looking for them. But the thing is, they will always be helping each other. And that is one thing we've learned, at least in this career break story, that when you're in the same shared pain, the desire to help the other person going through similar pain is high. So not only are you building a community, you're also building a pipeline or a database for the future. And
Yeah.
employers today may not want, let's say, Python or cyber, but tomorrow they may want. So there is an invested interest on both parties to stay in touch, and that keeps the community together.
Yeah, that's and I think that's really powerful also that it's what you said about if the pain is the highest, your desire to help is the biggest,
Yes.
True.
which is sort of counterintuitive to especially I think men. So
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe
so
the case.
how do you sell the how do you help these women get into actual jobs then? Because you
Right.
upskill them, you give them let's say the also training, you train them on
Yes.
workplace skills.
Yes.
Then what happens after that?
Good. And I think we use take care to use the right language also in this, Turkan. We say that we will give you the skills and the confidence and take you to the door of an employer. Getting inside the door is your job, right? Convincing them that you are the right person is what's your thing, but making you feel that you have the right skills, that's our job. What we do is when we start our, let's say, cohort or the set of people that we've selected and screened, We
Hmm.
also begin talking to employers. And currently, we're talking to some of the best employers in the business. And then we say that, look, we have this pool. You can, in this pool, find the skills that you need by people who are hungry to do the work. You can
Hmm.
train for everything, you cannot train for hunger. So these are people who are hungry to do the job, they have the skills, and there's 20. If you want three, if you want four, then come and dip into this pool that you have not considered before. And that's what excites employers because they have the backgrounds. In some cases, they have consulting background. In some cases, they have retail background. And the only thing that they do not have is continuous employment. So the answer to your question is the minute we start our cohort, when we get the people ready, that's when we also start talking to employers.
So you start building to put it in startup language, you start building the marketplace on
Exactly,
both
exactly.
sides at the same time.
It's a
Correct.
two-sided story
Yeah,
for us,
yeah,
indeed.
yeah. So one of the things I was wondering about, maybe it's also good to ask that question right now. There's a couple of similar recruitment slash career building initiatives that I've had on the show. So I've had
Hmm.
Alex
Hmm.
Equals has a program. Is this how is Blockverse Institute different from those, except that you focus really specifically on women returning to the job market?
So, shall I take an initial stab, Iris, and then I'll pass the baton on to you? One thing is to understand what the difference is. The other thing is to completely understand who you're really supporting here. So, the who in our case is designed around a particular learner who has kids who come back from school, who then has to look after other unpaid work. So the way we have designed it is around the user that we have. So our sessions, for example, do not involve them going to another location, sitting for 8 hours, and then doing this over a period of 1 month, 6 months, 9 months.
Hmm.
Our sessions involve that when the children have been put to bed or just after school, when they're free, they're feeling relatively more freer.
Hmm.
That's when we do the sessions in a very user centric kind of way. While other companies are in the same business as we are and power to them, our story is more about hand holding support, the feeling of being vulnerable, and then the audience really matters. So, for example, a mid career woman is at a very different level of maturity than, let's say, a graduate or somebody who's a target audience for other kinds of companies.
Hmm.
So I think where we think we are, our secret sauce is designing things around the mid career, early career woman and not around, okay, this is our product, this is the training course, go do it.
Hmm.
And the second thing, and I would think this is probably more important than the former, is that we all have, and you've heard Iris and you've heard our other colleagues, we all have deep corporate HR backgrounds.
Yeah.
So we know what an employer looks for. And the employer interviews that we did, Durkian, they told us, yeah, some of the themes that came up were quite stark. For example, this gentleman in South Africa, he said, Gaurav, I don't care for the course as much. I care for the person that you are training. The person matters more than the course. So we take real pain in selecting, screening, using our psychometrics, and arriving at the right person. So I think that is super important. We are not in the mass technology play. We're in that the person who wants to learn play and how we can design learning around that. I'm sure my colleague Iris has better builds on this one, but yeah, that's our story from for this part.
Okay. So Iris.
I don't know if I have better builds. I think you've explained it quite well already. But I think I think one of the things that I think is different, but it's also sometimes difficult to always know exactly. But I think one of the things is different is that we have an offline and online model, and
Hmm.
that's what Gaurav was just referring to as well, and where we really believe that some of the things we you can really do through well advanced platforms in which you can really get the technical knowledge that you want. And we use a lot of use cases to make sure that you can actually apply it, which I think is very important. Our, like Gaurav said, our story is really, we want to make sure that you're ready and you're capable of hitting that job market. And also for an employer, that once he hires you, that you have a shorter time within the company to be able to really add value, if you will,
To
because
start
you've
being
had the training.
productive.
Yes, yes, because you've had the technical training, you've had the behavior training, and now you're really you're quicker to be productive, if you will. And I think with that, for that we really feel that on the technical side, you need really good platforms in order to be able to do use case based learning.
Hmm.
And what I think is what we hear back and what people really appreciate is the behavioral training that we do as well. So really picking up that, and that combination makes you really ready for the workforce. And I think we do that really well.
Okay. And what I also am hearing you say is that you do a fair bit of selection up front.
Correct, correct. Yeah, because what Gaurav was saying, it's so important. It's not necessarily skills, but it's also who you bring to
Yeah.
employers. So that's why we do psychometric testing up front. And we really want to make sure, and we test on learning agility. We test on how good are you, but where are you technically, so we know what your starting point is. So we also can cater to your needs, if you will, the technical skilling that we do. So we really want to make sure up front that we know that the person who's going to be entering is also going to be successful. And I
Okay.
think that's in both our interest, and that's in the interest of the learner, and it's also in our interest, because then the company becomes more successful. But it helps really the learners as well to really go through this psychometric testing and have the conversations with each other and really make sure that this is what you're ready for and this is what you would like to engage into and spend your time on.
Yeah. Yeah,
True.
what I like about this is that you do also exactly this testing up front. So it's not we just get like 20 women to sit in a class
Exactly.
online
No,
or
no.
offline,
And
but
Zanjan, if
really,
I could,
yeah,
sorry, after you, I
sure.
just wanted to double click on the testing bit a little bit, if that
Yeah,
may.
please.
So we analyzed really 40 years worth of literature on the subject. Surely we're not the first person. People have written books and done a lot of research on this.
Hmm.
And the literature pointed out that while there are many competencies needed for a digital or a good software programmer, or not a software, just a good digital employee,
Yeah,
the top five things were ability to learn, ability to communicate, problem solve, analysis, communication skills. So we designed our thing around these top five competencies that a person would need, any employer would be looking for. And the good thing is that technology, is very fast, it changes
mm,
regularly. So
yeah,
this ability to learn is a very valuable metric in selecting the right person.
yeah,
And in
yeah.
a future world, when we have thousands and thousands of learners, we will be able to predict which company, which learner does well in what environment, and which company needs what kind of learners. And that's when the magic of really getting a lot of data, and then it'll be a human AI in that sense. So that's what we want to go towards.
Okay, that sounds cool, and I think if I understand correctly, it's at the moment it's still also for the company about not only about recruiting and upskilling women and then putting them or giving them an opportunity to have a job
Mm,
and onboarding employers, but also building a data, sort of building up the data so you can actually later put a prediction model on it.
that is correct.
Yeah,
I guess in our ideal world, we call it a skill and match
yeah,
platform. So we skill diverse talent, and yet at the same time, we would match them to employers. But we have matched them on employers based as well on what Gaurav said, the psychometric testing you've done in the beginning. So that also means that the values that somebody has, the way somebody works, for example, that matches with the values that the company has. Because then again, research has already demonstrated many times, if you find the employee that matches your values and matches you as a company, then
yeah,
the chance of higher engagement, the chance of longer stays within the company hugely increases.
yeah,
So if we can do that up front, then we really feel that we also add value to the companies, because they don't only have skilled people, but they also know they're skilled people, behaviorally trained and well fitted within the culture and of that company.
yeah. So they have a shorter time to being productive,
For sure.
Hmm.
Yeah.
and also they then stay longer because they fit better
Yeah.
with.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what do employers have to change at their end? Because we started out with a
Hmm.
remark that from one of the participants, I think it was in South Africa, that she wanted to work in a company where there was enough female leadership.
Correct.
So how do you build that? Because
Mm,
I can imagine that there's a lot of other women who want this too. They want
mm,
to have that safe space.
So maybe I'll give my opening remark on that.
Yeah.
The reason for lack of female leaders is, and if you look at career as a ladder, of course it's now a web, but there is a broken rung in the ladder that we're talking about.
Yeah.
And that broken rung happens at career breaks, either through relocation or maternity. And what we're really doing, Durkyan, is we're solving for putting a little bit of the ladder back so that you still can climb. This
Hmm.
is a long game. So, but if there is a broken rung, then you find yourself stuck. The only way leaders are born or made or whatever is when they've climbed on all the rungs of the ladder. But if one of them is broken, then you can't climb up. So we're in it for the long game, and that's, I think, the reason for the company to be in the company. I just wanted to take a minute and swing to the question that you asked of what employers could do.
Hmm.
And quite frankly, there is just one big message. Look at places where you've not been looking at. Employers, historically, at least in the Netherlands, in Europe, have not been looking at career break women so much because they think they either don't know the language or they don't know the culture, etc. But if they start looking at places where they've not been looking, they will be surprised by the gold under the carpet. So I think that's my what I would take away.
Yeah. And I love the analogy you had on the career ladder, because actually what you're doing is indeed repairing the ladder, and with that breaking sort of the glass ceiling.
Correct.
So I want to switch gears a bit because I met you through the DNNL, so Dutch New Narrative Lab program. How did that program help you build the company?
So there are multiple answers to that question. The biggest, I think, was just the when you're in such a tough business as we are in, not just tough in terms of the market, but also tough in terms of keeping your sanity and your mindset. It really helps to know that the new narrative and people with migrant backgrounds, that there is somebody who's thinking of this.
Yeah,
And in the end, when you're in such a tough, rocky road, you cling on hope. And the biggest thing the program gave us was there is hope. There are people like us. I mentioned in the beginning that shared pain makes you feel more empathy.
yeah,
And so this is a shared pain. And
uh-huh,
when you see in a room that everybody is going through similar things like what you're going through, it gives
hmm,
you hope and gives you strength to carry on. Of course, there is network. Of course, there is the network can bring contacts, can bring wealth. Those things are there. But the biggest is, I think there was this movie Shawshank Redemption. Hope is a good thing, right? So that
yeah.
is what keeps you going. So that's, I think, what I brought in. I could take in. I'm keen to bring in. Iris had a different
Yeah.
take on also on this exciting take on
I
this.
know, yeah. I don't know if it's a different take, but I think building on what Gaurav said, I think one of the great things is the many contacts that you get through the DNNL network, because there are really great contacts, great companies connected to it as well. And one of those contacts, Peter Zerp, for example, from Accenture, he led us through the ESDP, which is the European Supplier Diversity Program. And we have now been certified by the ESDP as a diversified supplier, which means that this is a network of companies that have said, you know what, we also want to make sure that in our supplier network from these companies that we become more diverse. But sometimes for these huge companies, and I recognize that I've worked for large companies, it is difficult to work with smaller suppliers like ourselves. And they have now been certified and they've now created a certification process through which, if you've gone through the certification process as a supplier, these large companies know that you've ticked certain boxes and they could feel more confident in working with you. That has been, I think, for us, it's a huge thing to be able to be certified as a supplier, as being a diverse supplier, which also means that it's easier for other companies to come in and work with us. So I think that that's one of the maybe side effects, if you will. And a big shout out to Peter Zerp for helping us on that one.
Uh-huh.
That is not necessarily directly through, but through the fact that you get to know more people, other things happen. And I think
Yeah.
that's really what this has brought as well.
Yeah, and to your point, I understand the certification is a big one because
For
it
sure.
indeed makes it easier for larger companies, A, to
Yeah.
find you, and B, to
Yeah.
work with you.
Yeah.
without having to worry like, okay, do they have the necessary qualifications?
Yeah.
And do they do the right things? There's usually for large companies, there's quite tedious onboarding trajectory. So that it's also saving them time on that, I would think.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
also, I can imagine, it makes you less reliant on your personal contacts.
Yes, yes, because through that network, there's a lot of companies connected to it, and they're starting to build it up, and they're inviting more companies to be connected to it, and they organize events so you get to know the companies who are looking for diverse suppliers.
The way to look at it, one way to look at it could be that what we are doing for learners on our learners is what ESDP is doing for us, right? Our learners are relatively not seen, and we take them to the doors of the people who matter. Similarly, ESDP, we are smaller suppliers, we are not seen so much, but we're taken to the doors of people who can change the business for us. So exactly the parallel is as simple as that. It is two parallel roads on this one.
So I want to thank you both for this interview so far. Really enjoy it. I'm on a mission to make DEI in tech the new normal, and I think you're pretty much on the same mission. And I was wondering what your advice would be to me to make that happen.
The advice, yeah, it's always easier to give advice, but yes, the the thing is, growing job families is where the game is at. So these are job families which are seeing growth, etc. So the advice could only be that to the potential thing is take risks and go for the higher value of the curve. So go to growing job families. Of course, the other advice, the relatively simpler one is, and I had a boss who used to tell me this, huh? When matchsticks fall on the floor, you don't need a strategy to pick them up. You just need to get down on the floor and do the work. So I am a strong believer that just get down on the floor, do the work. And this is a game where you just need to do the tactics as good as you can, show up every day, and
Yeah,
just clean the floor every day. So keeping at it is 90% of the game.
I like that one. Thanks. Iris.
I guess first of all, is a congratulations on your mission is maybe the first thing I would say, because I think it's really cool that you're doing this, and then I think important to celebrate successes.
Mhm.
And I think it's important to celebrate successes because you're not building for a sprint, but you're building for a marathon. I think relating to what Gaurav is also saying, this is a
Yeah.
long game.
Yeah.
And I read your, I think it's 2032, you said, right? I think that would be wonderful. Let's strive for that. My glass is always half full, so let's have a positive mindset. But it's a long road. And
Yeah.
one of the things that I really appreciate working with Gaurav is that he calls it sometimes just show up, and I like that as a phrase. Every day, just show up. And I think that's a really that's something that has stuck with me when, with working with Gaurav. It's important. Pick up the matchsticks, just show up and continue,
Okay.
and then things will change. That I'm positive about.
Okay. Yeah. Do you think
Indeed.
2032 is manageable?
Ooh, I find that a
That's
tough one, Dirk Jan. I find that a tough one between what my hopes are and what I sometimes feel is maybe realistic.
Hmm.
But I like the 2032. I like it because it gives you
mm,
guidance. It
mm.
gives you a direction, and let's make sure that we make it. Maybe it should
Yeah.
be as simple as that. Let's get to it and make sure that's something that we will reach.
Yeah. And I absolutely will. And I will show up. Well,
Yeah,
I'm
That's
showing up
great.
every day, I think.
yeah,
That is true.
yeah. Cool, very cool.
So thank you very much, Gaurav, Iris, for this conversation. A last question I have is if people want to learn more about you and about Blockverse Institute and about the programs that you have, where would you like to send them?
Sure, they can definitely visit our website, our LinkedIn pages, but we're always excited to hear from people. So I would give my personal ID in the notes that I could share with you, and they're most welcome to reach out to me directly and to Iris directly. It's always fun to hear back what people have thought about the show and what people think about our thinking. So yeah, our personal IDs will also be there.
Okay, cool. And we'll include those links in the show notes. So once again, Iris and Gaurav, thank you very much for this conversation. Listeners, thank you very much for listening. And until the next episode, keep being awesome. Well, that's a wrap. Thank you for listening to episode 85 of Women Disrupting Tech with Gaurav Gupta and Iris Bloemsma on how the Blockverse Institute is becoming the platform to upskill and match women to tech. Thus, Gaurav and I hope that you've enjoyed our conversation as much as we did. And if you'd like to learn more about Gaurav, Iris, and Blockverse Institute, you can connect with them via the links in the show notes. As usual, you can find the show notes at womendisruptingtech.blog. On the same website, you can also become a member of the Women Disrupting Tech community. As a member, you get early access to new episodes, you get a handwritten email with the special moments of each episode, and you'll be the first to hear when new blog posts come online. So check out the show notes for a link. When you're looking for a role model to inspire your own hero's journey in tech, I invite you to check out one of the other episodes of this podcast on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. And if you're a regular listener, please give the show a rating or a review because that way you help other people discover the podcast. If you're a male ally and you want to help the Women Disrupting Tech make this podcast obsolete by the end of 2032, there's a simple thing you can do. Please share the podcast with friends, family, and co-workers because this way you give my guests a platform they need to make it happen. Finally, if you want to connect with me, you can reach me via dirkjan at womendisruptingtech.blog or you can send me a DM on LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, simply type in my name and you'll find me. With that, I wish you a wonderful day. I hope to see you in the next episode and until then, keep being awesome.